Hello and welcome to The Debate. I'm Rob McLean. This is brought to you by Ladbrokes and Talking Balls, where we look at what's happening with Scottish football and what will happen with Scottish football. In the company of this lot, starting on the right, Chris Sutton is here, Alec Ray, Johnny Boyle from Talking Balls, Ali McCoist, Michael Grant from The Times. And obviously, we're putting everything in perspective. We're talking about football here. We're all well aware what the big issue is at the moment, a major public health crisis, Chris. But football's got a big problem. Lots of people have problems, including the Scottish game.
Yeah, I think that football at this moment in time is very much secondary. With what's going on with the coronavirus, a lot of uncertainty about what is going to happen. First of all, with this virus, how long it's going to go on for. And whatever, and we are effectively discussing hypothetical subjects, possibilities which may come out, but it's very much secondary at this moment in time.
Ali, you look as if you might be well informed with lots of paperwork there and your question time glasses.
Looks can be deceiving, Rob.
Very unlike him.
What have you made of how Scottish football has dealt with this so far, the governing bodies?
I think the governing bodies have dealt with it reasonably well. I think at a higher level, I think we can question marks probably against both governments, the Scottish Government and indeed Boris's government in London, but we don't want to go down that road. Like echo what Chris said, there is a far bigger and wider issue which we do fully appreciate. But it is our job to sit and talk about the possibilities of what might happen, and it is hypothetical because we don't know effectively whether we're going to stay in a limbo for 4 weeks, 4 months, 6 months. We don't know, so it's guesswork. But I think the first thing you'd have to say is that they've done the right thing by cancelling the games, clearly, as has been the case with most of the unions round about Europe. So from that point of view, as I say, we're literally quite effectively in the hands of the gods to see when we can come back, when players can start training, when matches can get played. Are they going to get played behind closed doors? What we're going to do with promotion relegations? It's all the uncertainty.
While we're talking, Michael, UEFA are meeting, and one thing we do know for sure as of now, breaking news, and it's not a big surprise obviously, is that Euro 2020 is going to become Euro 2021.
Yeah, I think everybody was expecting the Euros to be one of the big fallers in this. That theoretically opens up some summer dates for rearranged football, but of course we don't know when we're going to be clear of this virus. We're not all going to be clear of this virus at the same stage, if you know what I mean. Certain countries are going to be coming out of this hopefully earlier than others. So that gives that's a complication for football to kind of rearrange its schedule and try and recover its kind of stability. But the Euros going down, I'm guessing they're probably going to move to next summer. That has knock-on consequences next summer. There's other tournaments would need to be moved, but it's a start, and this is a start of football trying to come to terms with a completely unprecedented scenario.
And it could get to the stage where, Alec, not everything's going to fit in. If we're restarting in September, October time, then something's going to have to give.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're talking about the League Cup and the Scottish Cup would most certainly be victims next year. However, I think the scheduling is tight in general terms. You look at if a couple of games get suspended through the course of the season, they're difficult to fit in. If you're trying to then fit in other games on top of that, then it becomes an issue. But there is so much moving parts. I think Michael makes a really good point there in terms of the difference from various countries, because some people got this earlier, some people are just in the start, the tip of the iceberg, if you like, and it's about how they come through the end of that. Then you can start doing European stuff. When do you start doing domestic stuff? Because it will all vary.
Obviously, your opinion matters so much as we voice our opinions on all of this. And Johnny, we are gauging opinion through social media. What have you got so far?
Well, so it seems like there's three kind of main theoretical options that we have. End the league now, as is, for it to be null and everyone to be awarded obviously their places as they are just now, or for it to be null and void, or for there to be some sort of extension. So I'm going to show some tweets from some fans out there. This one is, so there are a few ways in which you can deal with this season. If you decide that this season is null and void, who do I see a bit of refund for all the matches I paid to go see, including Champions League qualifiers, Europa League matches, and the home cup ticket scheme games? We've got one from Screeps here, it says, I reckon any decision taken by the SPFL regarding this year's title will end up at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. No way are all clubs going to accept either A, null and void scenario, or B, titles/relegation as per current tables. Now, I know there's a more important discussion to be had, but if we just look at Scottish football, it'd be interesting to find out what the guys think in terms of how they would deal with it first and what they think will be the most likely
Outcome.
resolution of all this.
Chris, is the league over?
Well, I don't know whether it's over or not. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, you know,
What do you think?
Well, I don't know, because we don't know, you know, what's going to happen with this virus. The Euros, you know, seems to free up a window. I mean, ideally, we want the league played to a finish. I think if we're all sitting here and we're being honest, you know, it doesn't look like that this virus is, you know, is going to finish in the next couple of months, which then leads to obviously the question which you're asking, whether, you know, Celtic deserve to win the title and Hearts deserve to get relegated. I would say there is no fair way, but that is probably the fairest solution. But I get the counter arguments. Ideally, you want the season to end.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't going to be a totally happy ending, is there, for everybody? That just can't happen.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Alec?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the placings, I take Chris's point in terms of after 30 games, you know, Celtic are clearly in front. For me, I said at the weekend when it all broke, I felt as if, you know, you had to see out all your games. But it's not just about Rangers and Celtic. It's about Hearts. There's potential games ahead. You've got people vying to get into the top six. You've got people vying for kind of Europa League places as well. So you have to do all that. But and going back to Johnny's point about litigation, I think there's an absolute stonewall certainty whatever way this goes. Because Chris says there's no fair way to go and approach this. And I don't know how going forward that helps the game, because after this all subsides, depending on how Zali says with the time frame, you then have to go through court and all that and then try and find placings that could wrangle on for months and years in terms of trying to get a legal solution to it. So this whole thing is an absolute nightmare.
What have Rangers and Celtic said, Johnny, about this so far?
So we've had Neil Lennon, who's obviously spoke, hasn't he, over recent days. He said, certainly if you're talking about the Armageddon of the league being cancelled or stopped, it should go on the average points total, which would make us clear champions, and rightly so. And just going back to what Chris said there, I think you tweeted the other day, Chris, that it would be the only fair outcome that
Well,
Celtic were the champions or Hearts.
The fairest outcome.
Do you still think that?
I do think that. You know, we want Celtic to finish the season, and you know, I'd of course prefer to see the outcome of the Celtic Rangers games, but at this moment, you know, I can't think of a fairer outcome than that. And Hearts, of course, you know, big club, and they'll argue that they have games left, but they, at this moment in time, they have been the worst team in the league. So I'm not saying they deserve to go down, but you know, we're not 6 or 8 games into the season. And I think it's interesting, you know, it'd be interesting to hear Ali and Alex's point as players. How would you fit now if I was sitting in second place and I was a Celtic player and Rangers were handed the title, 13 points clear, yeah. I would sort of get that. You know, would I be disappointed? I'd probably be disappointed that we're, you know, so far behind the leading team. But I would accept that. But of course, I understand the reasons why people don't want to accept it.
It's interesting, Rob, that last week Neil Lennon got a little bit of criticism, I think, for saying, you know, if the season stops now, Celtic should be champions. Now, to be fair to Neil Lennon, that was the question that was put to him. If the season stops now, should you be the champions? And he said, yeah, we're 13 points clear in the league. You know, it wasn't. I don't think it was fair to say that he was pushing an agenda. He was asked a question by the media, and then you saw it yesterday. Earlier this week, the Rangers statement that came out saying that, you know, in our view, there should be 38 games played. The season should be seen out. That makes perfect sense from Rangers' point of view, because they are not out of the race entirely for potentially winning the league and getting a Champions League place. Rangers can't take any other position on it while that is still, in theory, alive to them.
The fact of the matter is, every club and every supporter of every club will have their own agenda, right, which suits them, the scenario that suits them. So if we are going to sit here and think that clubs are going to say, no, that's the right thing to do, and it's not to the benefit of their own club,
Self-interest.
we're kidding ourselves on, right? So the fact of the matter is, they'll do it. They want to see be done what they think is the best for them, and with the element of fairness heavily involved. Now, take Liverpool for example. I go the other way, and you probably won't disagree. You probably won't agree with some of the stuff I'm about to say. In my opinion, you cannot possibly give anybody right now who hasn't won the title. Because you can't reward somebody for something that hasn't happened. How can you possibly say to somebody, right, there you are, you're champions, but you're not really champions? And more importantly, and I genuinely mean it is more importantly, you cannot possibly punish somebody for that hasn't happened. So how can you possibly punish Hearts to get relegated?
But this whole situation is unprecedented.
Correct.
And that is
so
the
they
issue.
have to find out. They find out. I think they have to find a way that there's an element of fairness. Take it a step further. Take it to Partick Thistle. Take it to Partick Thistle. Partick Thistle are bottom of the division, but they've got a game in hand, which would remove them from being bottom of the division. Bournemouth are sitting second bottom. If they win their game in hand, they go 14th or 15th. So how can it possibly be fair on those teams to be relegated? They have to find another way.
Scottish football seems to be led by what English football is doing. The Scottish decision came last Friday, hard on the heels of what England was going to do. Will the same happen here when a decision has to be taken on what happens with the league? Is it voided? Is it continued?
Yeah. I don't think the SPFL and the SFA would admit that, because it makes them look a little bit weak and a little bit kind of secondary. But I think that's what will happen. I think we're expecting the two leagues in Scotland, or the two bodies in Scotland, to meet the two bodies in England on Thursday.
Is that right? Should we be led by what they're doing?
I think it makes sense to at least be open. I mean, I don't, we're a very kind of impatient country in Scottish football. We want everything done now and decided now, and rules and regulations made now. We can take a little bit of breath here and take time to get the right decision. The real pressing thing on time is when clubs are going to start to run out of money. Now, we don't know if that's going to be in days or weeks or whatever, and it'll come at different rates for different clubs. But that's going to put a full stop on things, and we're going to have answers and support from the government.
Which is a far greater issue than anything we're talking about, really, in the grand scheme of things, whether it's champions or relegation. But I think, and Michael maybe point me in the right direction here, I think the SFA and probably the English FA would be sitting there praying that the decision gets possibly taken out of their hands by UEFA or FIFA, whoever it may be. That for them is a far better scenario.
You don't think that's a good thing though, in terms of like a universal decision?
Yes.
So that it's across the board.
100%.
If we're different to England and across the border, then all of a sudden people go, it's null and void, and it's different, and it becomes a lot more murkier than what it is. Universal, then it covers all that up.
But I think we all feel that about the COVID-19 thing in general as well, don't we? That this whole crisis, that if we are given clear instructions and governmental demands, be it from Scotland or from Westminster, it makes it easier for people rather than just vague guidelines.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're quite right. Nobody knows what to do, what they're doing at this moment. You actually need leadership in these times to tell us, and then maybe. I mean, don't want to get into the sort of medical aspect of all this, because I'm clearly not an expert, and neither are the guys here. But with regards, we'll find out a lot more when everybody is tested. There's not enough testing, to be done. So that's a huge issue. But getting back to the footballing side of things, and agree with a lot of what Ali says. But what would be your solution if you didn't agree with my solution about handing we obviously want to see it come to its natural end, but the problem you get once you get past June, there are all sorts of issues, and you're talking about players out of contract.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So how does that work? It's going to be impossible.
I think, although we've potentially been a little bit critical of the SFA and English FAs around, you have to have a certain degree of sympathy for them, because they're in the same boat as us. Because effectively they don't know. For example, if the government said, look, you can start playing football again on May 18th, for example, at least they know they can work around that date. But like us and like everybody else, we don't really have a date yet that we can work around. I know football's been put off till this date, but we don't really know, because it could go on another 2 months. So you have to appreciate that and sympathise with that. Excuse me. So I just feel that, a lot, we're here to give opinions, but a lot of it, getting back to the point I made, is hypothetical, because we don't know. In answer to your question, Chris, I think that, as I say, I'll stick by it. I don't think you can award championships. I certainly don't think you can relegate teams at this moment in time. And in saying that, you're looking for, what other alternative they come up with. My other alternative would be that whoever it may be, whether it's UEFA, FIFA, SFA,
The government
they have to exhaust every avenue in pursuit of finishing the competition. Now, I don't know how they do that. That's not my job, thankfully. But they have to exhaust every potential avenue they can to finish, in the hope that they can finish the tournament.
Which option would you use? What do you think is fair
depending
and right?
on dates, wherever
Time's a big issue.
it's a time scale. But if clearly my obvious option would be to finish the league if possible.
But then you get past June, and there was talk, I think, down south about a theory that you go on the same positions as last season, but that's going to have a knock-on effect. And Alex is right talking about legal implications. Leicester are third in the Premier League. Spurs are eighth. So Champions League football. Why should Spurs benefit next season from having Champions League football and Champions League money, and Leicester don't benefit? That's why once you get once this goes further down the line, you get past June, there are going to be major complications.
There isn't going to be one answer that suits
That's all.
everything. There's going to be flaws and problems and consequences on every solution that is suggested.
And Michael, massive legal ramifications possibly, which could actually stretch way beyond the coronavirus being sorted.
It could. I mean, there was a reference there to going to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. I mean, we're only talking about Scotland here, but multiply that by maybe 50 odd countries where there'll be disputes in most of them.
Yeah,
I know some of the Scandinavian countries haven't started yet, so there's a bit of kind of certainty there. But deciding league titles, deciding relegations, deciding the European places. There's going to be aggrieved clubs all over Europe.
Michael, sorry, Johnny. See, the thing is, we were obviously talking about the clubs there. We've got an individual there talking about his money back, season tickets, and you get sponsorship. So it really, the legal minefield here is usually unprecedented with this kind of scenario it is. But this also brings up all sorts of.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got the sponsors involved with an incomplete season, the broadcasters. Are they getting their money back? Scottish football is not exactly awash with cash anyway, so it could be the nightmare scenario.
Yeah, very quickly, Rob, you're running in PAYE payments, you're running out of wages being due at the end of the month. You're then looking at payments that are due from the governing bodies to the clubs. Will they be withheld, or will they be advanced if clubs need them in advance? You don't know if, as you say, the sponsors, do they feel that they've had their full product and therefore they give the full money? Same with BT and Sky Sports. You don't know what the broadcasters are going to do. So we are in completely uncharted territory here. And Chris said right at the beginning that it's all in perspective because there's bigger issues here than football. But football can be a distraction to people when they're worrying about every other aspect of their life, and so this is a distraction.
The clubs are actually looking to get a payment in April. Normally, in terms of the position and things, is that roughly about right? So they get a percentage of that payment.
And
so
that will happen in April.
That could be a lifeline for a lot of them.
But I think the May payment, as I understand it, is dependent on final league positions.
So should there be more looks into in terms of behind closed doors games? Do you agree with the consensus, which seems to be no behind closed doors?
I listened to Fraser Wishart. We're obviously based in Scotland, so he's the head of the PFA. He's actually come out and says that the members are not willing to put themselves at risk. We've seen that some other industries today have closed. So I think the closed door scenario would be, because what happens if someone is the virus, people are in quarantine, how do you fix all these games? A member of staff or a manager like Arteta, so you've not got a manager in place. So there's so much that kind of goes against that.
Presumably, Alec, even a closed doors game would have to have a kind of medical support
Absolutely,
there and an ambulance or whatever.
And that's an issue now.
You can't justify that really, unless the way the society is moving.
I mean, we've talked a lot about the league and what happens with the league. We've also got 2 Scottish Cup semi-finals and a final which are outstanding. We can forget for the moment about the Scotland-Israel playoff because that's now going to be Euro 2021. But the Scottish Cup is another big issue.
As Robin, go back to what I felt was I think, and it's just an opinion, I think the Scottish Cup is secondary to the league, to tell you the gospel truth. A lot of people might not agree with that. In an ideal world, can we get the league fixtures finished? Yes. Can we get finish the Scottish Cup? Absolutely. But if you're asking me, would I prioritise, and if we had to prioritise, I would finish the league if we could first, and then the Scottish Cup, in an ideal world.
But obviously the Scottish Cup has got European qualification connotations about it as well, hasn't
absolutely. You're probably thinking, you would be very, very hopeful if there is a scenario where we do get an opportunity, no matter when it is, to finish the league, then you would think you possibly would squeeze 3 games into that as well, in terms of the Scottish Cup, with 2 semis and the final, whatever. But if you're asking me if it's a priority, I think the league, I don't know whether the boys agree or not, I think the league would be a priority, and then of course in an ideal world we could finish with the Scottish Cup, but it doesn't come without its, as you say, without its European problems as well.
They'll definitely want the Scottish Cup finished, because I mean that's potentially 3 full houses or no far off it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for the SFA.
But your key word, money, finance.
Yeah.
We're coming back to finance seemingly all the time, whether it's clubs getting relegated, it's money.
Do you think finances will have a big bearing in a lot of how this all pans out? Litigation against maybe the
100%.
organisations
Yeah,
and things?
absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's all about money, because the truth is, down south, there wouldn't be all these issues. I think Norwich would accept relegation. I think, and I understand, Villa have a game in hand, they're second bottom, Bournemouth. But if it wasn't about money, I think they'd say in these trying times, then we would accept that. But it's all the implications. Do Leeds United, do they deserve promotion this season from the Championship? Absolutely they do. I mean, what's going to happen there? West Brom as well. Talk about legal actions from I think the top 6 clubs against the Premier League. And this is going to be endless, but it's all about money. Yeah. So if there was no money in the game, then I think we'd all sit here and accept things easier.
And that's that's probably as big a financial carrot that's been given up when you think about it, because they still talk about this game being the most expensive game in the world, the most valuable game in the world, which is the Championship playoff. So if you're in that team where it's Preston and the teams that are going for it, Fulham obviously, Brentford, teams like that, they're actually forsaking an opportunity, to the big dollar, the big bucks. And I mean, what a decision that is. Sorry, no playoffs this year. Would they be upset? You're damn tootin' they'd be upset.
And this is obviously a global issue. Chris is talking about the English leagues, but you go around Europe and there are some really tight leagues, aren't there? There are some really tight situations. Like Germany's pretty close and tight as well. So, it's not over here. We kind of know who's about to win the title if the leagues continue.
Sorry, can you go back to that?
Yes, if you get Germany, there's 4 points.
I just wanted to see the Spanish one there. I was just saying, how do you go like that then? They're at the top end, Chris, in terms of, obviously the standings. How do you go like that to Real Madrid?
Considering the 2 teams as well.
And there's no easy way, but they are top at this moment in time. It's not 4 games, it's not 6 games. It's 29 in Spain.
Lazio won for the first title in 20 years.
It's not. Of course, it's not perfect. I'm not saying that, but it's probably the fairest way. If I was a player, I would accept. If I was in, looking at the Spanish league, if I was a Real Madrid player and they handed the title to Barcelona,
would you know?
I wouldn't like it, but I would accept it in the current.
Do you know? I hear what you're saying about the number of games, but I don't think that should come into it at all, and I'll tell you why. Say there was 1 game to go. Right, we usually have a scenario with Celtic Rangers, right? Say there's 1 game to 37 games played, whatever it be, right? And Celtic were 1 point ahead of Rangers. What game to go?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's.
But
and that's why I'm saying you can't do it in that scenario, and that's why I'm saying you can't do it now, and that's why I'm saying you just can't do it.
But we are where we are with coronavirus, so a decision has to be made. So I'm saying this is the way I think is the fairest way, and yet nobody else with respect at this moment in time is coming up with another answer.
No, and if
we're saying of course we've got time and we want to play the season, I want that.
Yeah,
of course we do. But
if you can't continue, and we're surely heading fast towards the place where the season can't be completed. There are only 2 choices. It's either as it stands or it's voided. The season's voided.
Give us another solution which is workable. That's a terrible solution, but it's the best one out there.
Do you like the idea of say we get back playing in June or July and extend the season, play the remaining games?
How does it work after you mentioned July? How does it work with players out of contract? And
players coming in?
Well,
certainly the lower level you go down, I
Yes.
think there are so many.
They'll be half the team out of contract. They're
Yeah.
recycling players at
And
the
then-
lower level, so you don't get that kind of level playing field where you could actually. So the bigger teams within the divisions would have the advantage because they'd be able to offer teams like Falkirk, as an example, be able to. Whereas the lower ones are part time, shipping them out. So
getting back to, if you're asking me, I hear what you're saying. You're the only one that's come up with an effectively a scenario, right? Which I get, and
That's a scenario I don't like.
correct. You know, whatever we're going to come up with, we're going to come up with a scenario we don't like because we want the season finished. But I get back to what my opinion is. You can't award somebody something that they haven't won. And more importantly, and it's far more importantly, you cannot punish somebody for something that hasn't happened. So therefore, if you're asking me the question, it would have to be null and void. But that is the worst scenario that I would want to see. You'd always want to get the opportunity to finish
Are
it.
you talking sporting integrity?
Absolutely,
So-
100%. I mean,
so-
Rob, how can you send down Aston? I mean, how can you possibly relegate Aston Villa, who have got an opportunity with their game in hand to move up 4 places?
So how
Partick
are you
Thistle.
going? So
Partick.
go back to the Champions League argument. So
Yep.
are you putting Spurs in the Champions League then next season? Although they're 8th this season, because that's what will happen.
Well, I'm not saying that
could you not do the standing as it currently is? Would be the places for next season, Champions
in
League.
terms of Champions League.
Well, then that's the same
Well,
scenario.
it's given
No,
it's-
Well, you're
It's a bit of both.
accepting
What
that
Alex-
that's where.
yeah, but what Alex saying there is a bit of both. It's a bit of one scenario, and he's going to mixture of scenarios, which I get. You know, off the top of my head, I haven't really thought about that personally, but.
I've mentioned that the UEFA talks are ongoing, and we brought you the news earlier on that Euro 2020 has been put back for a year, which I guess we were all expecting. There is some breaking news in Spain which says that the Champions League final has been provisionally scheduled for June the 27th, coronavirus permitting. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, but even that may be premature.
Why? The question I immediately ask is, well, why the end of why does the end of June suddenly become safe
But
territory?
also, you don't just go straight to the final. I mean, you've got last 16 quarter-finals, semi-finals to get in. So when are they going to play?
No, we're talking about
One leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even so, I mean, you're talking about mid-June, early June almost at the very earliest. I think Serie A talked yesterday about trying to reconvene mid-July to finish the season. You know, so provisionally putting some sort of date on it. But
Is this just looking at a crystal ball?
of course, because we don't know when this
Guessing.
Is it due to be
crisis
in
is
Spain?
going
The final
to
due to
go.
be in Spain.
I don't know the answer to that actually.
The Champions League final.
Is it good? Is it not Gdansk?
I could,
Aye,
no, it's
that's
Europa.
Europa.
Europa's
Europa.
Poland. In the Champions League, no, it won't be Spain because it was Atletico Madrid last year.
Okay.
We should know that, guys. That's poor.
But it's a bit strange.
We'll have a look at your notes, Ali.
Bear with me.
If it's not in all these notes,
But it's a bit strange to be plucking that date, isn't it?
They-
With as you say, the preceding round still to be played, even if
But
the
it buys,
outcome is
Rob,
unlikely.
Rob,
it buys them time.
we'd be-
Istanbul is the answer to your
Yeah,
question.
Thank you. I was at the last one there. It's worth going. When the last one there was Liverpool 3-0
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
That was what a game that was. Anyway, getting back to your question or your point, we would be. Let's be honest about it, guys. We'd be sitting here criticising if nobody had come up with a date or a plan or something like that. Okay, they might have plucked it out there, but at least they've given us something.
Yeah, to hang on.
To hang on to. No, it might be wrong, and we hope it's not wrong, and we hope that might be the case. But if they hadn't come up with anything, we're the very people that be sitting here criticising them.
I would give them an option, so they have that date as things are progressing with time. I would give them an opportunity to say we've actually reviewed this again, and we might have to put it forward 2-4 weeks. But at least I've got a kind of starting point.
Michael, would I be right in saying that the government will be the ones who will decide mainly what happens in Britain? If they were to override any of the leagues, it would be the government rather than UEFA or any
it
other
will be because they can
organisation.
put this kind of ultimate prohibition on of saying no gatherings of over 500.
Yep.
And until that's lifted, then it doesn't matter what UEFA come up with.
If that's right, and if the Champions League is going to be, the Champions League final is going to be on the 27th of June, does that then make us start to think there could be football in Scotland in June? We could be playing summer football.
I'm not convinced that we can start to plan on that basis because UEFA aren't doing that on the back of speaking to the British government or the British health experts about when they think the crisis will begin to lift here.
These are reports in Spain, we should stress. It's not an official
Sure.
announcement from UEFA. is
I
it?
mean, I think from what we gather, the peak of
Yeah.
it here might
June.
be in June.
But
You don't just peak and then everything's fine the
Finishes,
next
yeah.
day. You've
Run
then
its
got
course.
the kind of the slow decline
Yeah.
of it, which presumably would still couldn't play football during that period.
It would be an interesting prototype for summer football, wouldn't it? If that was able to happen, if we were able to play in either June or
Yeah.
maybe even July, and obviously we do start in August anyway. But
There has been a kind
summer football,
Yeah,
that might be the start of something like a change.
I think a lot of people have actually been kind of championing this for a long time due to the fact we see some of the pitches, some of the games that have been cancelled throughout. So potentially it could be, Rob. But listen, I'm with Michael in terms of the peak and then the time of the levelling off period. I think we're looking at August, September, and that's just a hazard, I guess, because we don't know how long this is going to kind of pan out. It's so unpredictable. We are at the tail end of Central Europe, so we still have to plan for this. But I like the idea of actually putting a date maybe in place just to buy some time. It gives you a leeway rather than just call it nil, or whatever it is, null or void, or call it as is. So it gives you something to kind of buy. Because I think times where everybody's looking for answers. But I think patience is the way forward. I don't think you can delve in and go, right, make a rash decision.
Is it dangerous to pluck dates like that one, 27th of June, because you raise people's hopes?
Well, I think Ali's right. You've got to give people something to hang on to, but they have to say something, or would accuse them of fudging and not giving an option. All things being equal, I think that window open to the end of June. We've got to try and get the games played. However, whether you talk about summer football, if we have to cram the games in, do that. Whether that's feasible or not, probably not at this moment in time.
So I've got a quote here, Rob. Stuart Robertson, the Managing Director of Rangers. We believe that final standings can only be confirmed when all games have been completed, not before. So that echoes what you have said, Ali.
Been speaking to Stuart?
No, I haven't actually, but it's nice to hear he's listening. It's very.
He goes on to say any attempt to...
Do you think he would have said that had Rangers kicked on after the winter break?
I don't know, but do you think Lenny would have said what he said? Everybody's
I
got their
don't
own
know.
agenda. Everybody's got their own agenda. You've got to, we're talking about this, and the one we probably should be talking about more than is Liverpool. Crikey,
Yeah.
Liverpool haven't won a title for 30 years. They've produced the best football lots of us have
Yeah.
seen in many a year
So how can you deny them?
because
of
they
that
haven't
then?
won it. Simple.
Do you think clubs, to all of the guys though, do you think clubs at this stage should be coming out with statements like this?
But like
It's
I
like
said,
Michael
they're
said, but that's-
asked the questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if was this necessarily a question or was this a statement that was put
I
out
think
by
this was a
Rangers
statement
yesterday?
issued, but I think you were mentioning Neil Lennon.
Yeah, this
he
was
was
an
actually
actual
asked a
statement.
pointed question
Yeah.
to which he gave the answer, and sometimes you can get the wrong impression, and you can take that bit out of
So
context.
slightly different to Anne Budge,
Yeah.
obviously.
Well,
Anne Budge spoke in the press conference. This was through the Rangers website, obviously.
but he has to say that. I think there's appeasing the fans is
Self-interest.
I'm just
extremely
comparing it though to
important.
obviously Celtic. Neil Lennon spoke in a press conference, but as far as I know, Peter Lawwell hasn't issued a statement in terms of what the club actually
There'll
thinks.
probably be one
Oh, no,
country.
I think you'll find he's probably done it through Lenny. But the fact of the matter is anything surprised you? Is Lenny's comment surprised you? Is Stuart Robertson
Scott Brown.
and Budge? Scott, I mean, come on, it's what you'd expect.
But I still haven't heard from you and Alex how you'd feel from a player's point of view. Would you accept it as a Rangers player that Celtic
You'd have to.
should be champions this
If a
season?
decision's made, you'd have to.
But how would you? I'm not saying across the board. I'm saying how would you accept that as a Rangers player?
You would feel as if you could still go on and win it because you've got the two games and then you've got a game in hand. We have seen time after time where people have crumbled in the running. I've seen it time after time.
Listen, Chris, are Celtic favourites to win the league? Come on. Of course they are. Are Liverpool, it would take for Liverpool not to win the league. But the fact of the matter is, they have to win it. They can't be given it, I don't think. You just can't give somebody something because they're leading.
I mean,
It's
I
like
don't see.
to use a horse
I'm
horse racing term. It's like giving the winner. If you jump beaches, you've won it, but the finishing line's are way up there. It's impossible.
You don't
Like a bit like a horse racing.
I find that strange, and I know what you're saying
Sorry,
because if there is, you're right there.
Sorry, I'm just going to give you some stats in a minute.
But
Research.
if there is hope, I totally get that. But because of the situation and what has evolved here, you sort of have to. I have to say I would accept it because Celtic have been the better side. I mean, and they haven't. I know we can talk about.
Chris, there's no doubt about that.
We can go about it. We can talk about closing the gap.
No doubt about it.
This, that, and the other. Get the arguments about the Premier League. I love Norwich, but Norwich are adrift at the bottom. And I think, in the interest of fairness at this moment in time, they have to go. I mean, Villa. I think in the only way it's workable is if
effectively
they go down.
you would send your old team down for something that hasn't happened yet.
Yes. In this current circumstance, but because it's all and as I said earlier, stand by this. If it wasn't about money, nobody would be looking at this as a big issue. I think there would be a greater acceptance. But you cannot deny Liverpool the title in England.
I can.
You can, and you.
I'm denying them it.
You
I'm
can't,
denying them.
But I
for the
find
plain and simple
they are
reason
so
they have
far down the line, and I know there are different sporting
They haven't won
analogies where I know you had a horse racing one. I get that, but I know you're a sort of pretty average cricketer, but the Duckworth Lewis.
Yeah, I get that as well.
And then you've got boxing. I think is over so many rounds. I'm not a boxing expert, but
but the Duckworth Lewis.
Stands. So you can look. We can make have all these arguments and look at both sides.
I'll give you a couple. I'll give you a stat, Biggie. In season 2008-9, Celtic dropped 11 points in 10 games. They had a lead of 7 at one point. In 2008. Rangers beat Celtic after a run of 17 wins and 1 draw in the first 18 games, and they dropped 15 points in the last 9 games, Ali, to lose the league.
Can you get those glasses any further down your nose?
Well, it's just because I want to see it, but it's okay. But there you go, there's a couple of stats where teams have crumbled and it's lost.
But that's all in those notes that he's got.
Yeah, I know, but somebody said
that's my point. That's exactly what I'm saying. Getting back to what you said.
There's a bit of straw clutching.
Liverpool, it's not. I'm only stating it the way I see it. Liverpool have been the best team.
Do they deserve the title?
Do they deserve it? 100% they deserve it once they win it. Should they've not won it? Do they deserve? Do you know what they deserve? I'll tell you what Liverpool deserve. The same as every other team that's sitting at the top of the league right now.
Come on.
They deserve the opportunity.
How can you deny Liverpool the title? You can't.
Of course I can. They haven't won it. That's why they have not won the title.
Man.
I know, but listen, they deserve the opportunity to go and win the title. Because,
but that opportunity may not arise.
Well, here's what I'm going to say to you right now, okay? I agree totally with what you're saying about Liverpool. They deserve the opportunity, and I genuinely hope they go on and get the opportunity to go and win it. The English League give them a title. Do you think Manchester United fans are going to let Liverpool?
I agree with that.
Oh, you won that title.
That title doesn't count. Manchester United.
That's guaranteed, isn't it?
That's guaranteed. It'll be the title, the one that they never won. Do you want the Liverpool boys
but
to remember?
That's only the petty brigade, isn't it? Who get involved in all that.
That would be 98% of football fans then from where I'm sitting.
Especially here.
I know.
Should Scotland do what England does? And should there, even going beyond that, should all the European leagues have the same decision?
Same outcome.
I'm not sure, Rob, to be honest. I mean, they're at different stages. I mean, I know most of them are nearing the end.
That would make it simpler, though, wouldn't it, if UEFA just said, right, that's it. Whoever's ahead is
I'm not convinced
champion.
UEFA will do that, though. I'll be honest. I'm not sure that they will just put an absolute rule down, because they might say, listen, this is yours. This is your league. You sort it out. We might give you a guideline, but they won't give you a rule.
Was I there? I was with Roddy Forsyth on the radio last night, and he was saying something. Michael will know this better. Where they could hand Celtic the title, but it wouldn't be recognised. Is that right?
Yeah. Well. Yeah,
which is probably a hard it's probably, when you strip everything back and you think about both sets of facts, it's an option which I'm not saying would suit. When it's
I'll tell you right now. I think, Chris, what you've said there is, and I'd love to hear the boys' views on it. It's an option I don't think Celtic would want. I think probably every other team in the league would take it.
So you've won the league, but you haven't?
Yeah.
Is there a precedent from that before in terms of that kind of mechanism being put in place?
More time, league titles are not technically recognised as such, are they? They're not in the
ones during the war, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think during the war they weren't recognised as...
Those were the wartime ones during the war.
That's what you said.
I was talking about the First World War. Crimean.
You played them, didn't you?
That's a bit harsh.
I think it's worth pointing out that every country is probably going to deal with this in a different way. So Spain at the moment is in complete lockdown and has, I think, the second most cases in Europe behind Italy. and those are some of the leagues that we're speaking about. So it might be the case, obviously, that once everything's contained, that Scotland might be in a position to get back, or Britain might be in a position to get back playing sooner than maybe Italy will.
You can't have an across
so
the
it might
board
be difficult
ruling.
to go across the board, because some countries are hit obviously a lot worse than some others, and Spain is obviously a big one. So Spain might not be back playing football until, again, theoretically, much later in the year, maybe October, November. But Britain, particularly if the borders are closed, and it looks like we're potentially heading towards that maybe Britain will be in a position to get back to playing football sooner.
Quicker.
Yeah, but the theory is we're behind Spain and Italy, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the spread of the virus.
I'm only basing that just on the fact that Spain has a lot more cases, don't they, at the moment? Spain has the second most cases in Europe behind Italy, and then obviously Italy has the worst. It was more on Rob's point that I don't know if you can come up with a blanket solution for all the countries.
And I mean, when it comes to this decision about the title and whether it's going to be completed, whether it's voided, whatever happens next, are the clubs making that decision, Michael, or is it the administrators? Is it the
governing body?
the big chiefs?
This is the point Anne Budge made yesterday, wasn't it? That as I understand it, at the moment it goes to the SPFL board, which has got 9 members. Currently, Stuart Robertson's on from Rangers. Peter Lawwell kind of skips on and off that board.
He'll probably get himself back on it.
He's picked a bad year to be off it.
He's got enough on there, don't worry about it.
So
I'm surprised you're not on it, Chris.
they have the discretion, as I understand it, they have the discretion to say the season's finished. In any given year, if there's a unique set of circumstances, they can say the season is finished. We declare at the moment Celtic are the champions, Hearts are down. And Budge's point, I think, was because this is such an incredible scenario, that it's maybe worth opening it to the 42 clubs and saying, right, what do you want? What's the majority vote on this? And it may come to that. I mean, there's this kind of joint group between the SFA and the SPFL.
Joint response, yeah.
But I think that's more of a response to the kind of nuts and bolts of the kind of dates and stuff like that. I mean, John McLean, the doctor's on it, for example. I don't think that would be looking at what do we do with the league title.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be the 9-man board unless they say, right, we're going to have, it's so big we're going to have to open this to all of you.
It's a constantly moving story, obviously, both with coronavirus and with all industries, including football. Here's a statement from Hamilton Academical, which is why we've been talking, has just come out. They're saying this morning players and staff sat in on a meeting with our chairman, with the conclusion being a temporary suspension of training until further notice.
I think a lot of them are doing that. I think there's a lot of them had training ground lockdowns, and that goes back to how long do you keep that in place?
Well, there's another question, if you like, because the break, when you had the normal summer break, whether it was 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whether it be effectively where we're sitting just now, no matter when we start again, the vast majority of all the players are going to have to do a pre-season. Now, pre-season normally takes 4, 5, 6 weeks.
It's interesting that, and also mentioned the emergency services. The issues with that. You've also got you think of the current players, relatively young. Pregnant women, players who have pregnant partners, they're supposed to be in isolation now. So I mean, I think it'll be this week where we'll actually look at banning training, because it isn't workable. Then you've got the staff members who have to go in, and the issues with families who have elderly relatives and contact this, that, and the other. So I think there'll be self-isolation in terms of across the board, and that means football clubs will have to adhere to that.
All sorts of implications, and we've been talking a lot about clubs towards the top level of Scottish football, but when you go down the pecking order, the longer this runs, the greater the chance of not just one club, but maybe quite a lot of football clubs going out of business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Stirling Albion have already come out this morning and talked about, they'd be in dire straits as this goes on. There's something like 3,500 people employed by football, in terms of the staff around all the clubs. And, when we mentioned earlier about the monies, almost makes it sound like it's greedy. It's not. I mean, you're talking for a lot of these clubs, it's just keeping the
life and death, isn't
it's
it?
Survival. It's keeping people in jobs. It's really as severe as that.
In terms of what you're getting with your finger on the pulse of social media, Johnny, I mean the concerns are wide and varied, aren't they? Really,
they are, and you can understand. This impacts everyone in loads of different aspects of their life.
Yeah.
I wanted to obviously ask the guys about the lower league clubs and how we're speaking about 9 in a row for Celtic and the implications of ending the season now and not giving them that title, or it potentially being a tainted run, as some people are saying, or Hearts being relegated. But looking at the lower league clubs, what do you think could be done to help them if there wasn't any football between now and September, October? Do you think the government can step in?
I think
the
it's the
SPFL
same
and
kind of
SFA
thing,
can?
because what you're asking is there effectively is a far greater issue than anything we're speaking about. You're talking about people's livelihoods and clubs staying alive. That's a far greater issue and should remain that way. Now, I think it's a little bit, for example, the First Minister or the Prime Minister on the television saying, make sure your next door neighbour, your elderly neighbour's all right, give him a wee chat, look after him. It's the exact same with football. The bigger boys have to, and the league, SFA, all got to get together and look after your next door neighbour, which would be the clubs down the lower divisions. Must help them. It's natural. You've got to help people that are in greater need. I mean, the greatest respect financially, I know we're talking about Hearts getting relegated, but financially it will affect the smaller clubs and a big. It could be so damaging for a lot of these smaller clubs. That's why we have to help.
Yeah, there was a Stenhousemuir chairman was on yesterday as well, talking about closing training facilities because they're a community-based outfit and they had sort of certain amount of kids, and that's also been closed to them. So that revenue stream is also kind of a closed door, and it is desperate times for these clubs.
It's not just the match day income though, is it? Which is obviously the gate receipts and the hospitality, corporate. But how many clubs nowadays try and make money during the week from their ground?
Yeah, AstroTurf and all that stuff.
AstroTurf, but also lounges, the business functions and so on.
It's Scottish football that they rely on the
43%.
attendance is more than
43%. That is.
Yeah.
Could this end in restructuring, where Hearts not to be relegated and Dundee United to be
I wouldn't be against
promoted?
that. I wouldn't be against
a 14-team top division.
I wouldn't be against that, selfishly. So, in answer to your question, yes, it could potentially end in restructuring. I wouldn't be, as I say.
How would that be? How would you structure it then?
So with Inverness,
even without the virus, the pandemic we're going through, restructuring it might have been a possibility, a good thing for me. I don't think increasing the size of the division is such a bad thing. Not massively.
Television aren't going to allow.
Yeah,
Celtic
less
and
Rangers.
I get it.
twice.
I get it. Listen, the fact of the matter is, Rangers and Celtic. This isn't you. Rangers and Celtic have dominated and dictated finances throughout Scottish football for 100 years, maybe. Out with Aberdeen and teams winning, going through runs. Generally speaking, it has been the old firm, and that will continue.
You talk about fairness, though, Al, in terms of if you bring 2 up, how does that affect the ones that are a point below? Why do we miss it? So you have all that kind of argument, and again, it's going back to fairness. Listen, you actually hit the nail on the head. Whatever scenario we put on the table, there'll be a counter argument because someone is going to be let down.
It would be ironic, wouldn't it, if we got restructuring and summer football as a consequence of this?
Well, I mean, if the next season doesn't get to start until September, October time, that's obviously a shortened time frame to get the whole of next season in. So, I mean, it's certainly been speculated on, isn't it, that there might be some sort of league reconstruction, even if it's only for a season, or do away with the League Cup next season, do away with the winter break.
Yeah.
Because
Would you give summer football a go?
It's not as easy as it sounds, I don't think, Ali, because the football calendar is so extended. I mean, when do we start? July? And we play till end of May?
All the major tournaments are in the summer as well.
The European qualifiers are due to begin on the 23rd of June.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it's really difficult, I think, to cram the end of this season onto the start of next season and then get the shortened season. Don't forget, next summer we'd have a Euros.
Yep.
So
I know.
You'd have to have internationals within that period as well, leading up to these games. And you've got the final
Nations
places.
League might have to go.
Absolutely.
For example, they're saying that they might just do away with that for the next year.
How would you get the final places then? Who would dictate the final places? Because there's obviously still a couple up for grabs if they're doing away with it.
Do you have sympathy, Chris, for the people that are having to make these decisions?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, it's because it's impossible to make clear-cut decisions because of what's going on. With said at the start, it's hypothetical. Everything we've discussed. We have our views on things, but it's all hypothetical, and total sympathy with the decision makers because whatever decision they make, they'll get people like us picking holes in it.
The fact of the matter is, Rob, our opinions could change in the next 12 hours.
They normally do.
That's a fair point. Because we're living day by day and everything's changing. I'll give you examples. Nicola Sturgeon on. We're doing the Rangers game on Thursday night. She's saying, yes, and one day we're going to look at this, that next thing, 500 people with this, and then bang, the very next day it's cancelled. And that's me. I'm not going to go at Nicola Sturgeon as such, but what the point I'm trying to make, decisions are being made and altered like that because nobody really knows.
In hindsight, looking back to last Thursday, that game should never have been played in terms of allowing the Germans coming from that part of the world to congregate in the corner and mingling all around the city. It was ludicrous.
Agreed.
And the Madrid fans coming to Liverpool, was it the night before or 2 nights
and
before?
they were advised not to with their own club, weren't they, I believe?
Yeah, their own city was almost in a lockdown, and yet 3,000 of them are at Anfield.
Where's the sense in that? I know.
But we've sort of gone a full circle. I mean, the most important thing is you know, how this coronavirus is going to be handled and people, and that's the most important thing. Certainly not football, although, you know, it's a game, I mean, it's going to be interesting because, you know, Michael works in newspapers and, you know, it's not just football, but all sports people, you know, they attach themselves to. It's you know, a get out where, you know, people, it's escapism, isn't it? Where people, you know, we all love talking about football and it looks like we're going to go through a long period, you know, without the game we love. So, you know, I think it's good that we do talk about it, but of course it's not a priority.
Just one more thought before we finish, Ali.
Yep.
Could the League Cup be binned?
Of course it could. As I say, again, I hope it's not. I genuinely hope it's not, but could it be binned? It could quite easily.
I'm not sure if they have a sponsor, do they, Michael?
I don't think, no, Betfred's up, isn't it?
I think so.
I think, like I said, finishing the league with a priority, then the Scottish Cup. I think probably in the list of priorities, the League Cup in terms of tournaments.
That's the one to go, isn't it? I mean, you can't lose a cup, can you? Because you have to get to the final and win it. So, you know, Ali's quite right that the league has to take priority. So that comes before everything else. You know, whether it's the League Cup and, you know, looking for the Europa League final champion, if they all have to go for finishing the various leagues around Europe, then so be it.
Let's finish as we started. Chris has already alluded to it just a couple of moments ago, Ali, that, you know, we're talking about Scottish football and voicing opinions, having a debate, coming up with no answers we were never going to. But overriding everything, of course, is the massive uncertainty
100%
across the country, and people getting seriously ill and dying and hunting for a solution to this, what feels like a disaster movie.
Yeah. If there's an element of us, you know, sitting here saying, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we should be talking about other things, but it's our job to talk about football. And in many ways, you know, a lot of people will be disagreeing, agreeing with our opinions, and that's what it's all about. It's how we escape from them, and that's a very, very good thing. But when you look at the bigger picture, I don't think in my lifetime I've ever seen a Prime Minister stand there, you know, out with, you know, maybe Maggie Thatcher went to war in the Falklands, and be so, I'm sitting there going, oh my, this is serious. This is, and I've never had that in my lifetime, so that does put absolutely everything into perspective. But it is our job to talk about football, and all sport has. You look at Australia, New Zealand cricket getting cancelled. It's a global sport has been affected by what is happening with this pandemic, and it's only fair and right that the priority is given to the welfare and the health of everybody around us, particularly the older people.
Well said. Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Johnny. Thanks to Chris and to Alec as well. Thanks to you for watching. You'll have had your own opinions. You'll have agreed with some of what you've heard. You'll have vehemently disagreed, I'm sure, with a lot of what you've heard as well. You will have your own strong opinions. The most important thing that we can say to you at the end of all of this is stay safe and bye for now.